Member Sperlingwood is absent. Member Rockwell.
Here.
Member Crowe.
Here.
Member Foltz.
Here.
Member Morse is absent. Member Cuddy.
Here.
Member Paul.
Here.
And Chair Jacobson.
Here. Thank you. And now the approval of the consent items. Would someone like to make a motion?
Move to approve the consent items.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any discussion? Any discussion from the public on the consent agenda? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes unanimously, Robin.
Sterlingwood is here.
Thank you.
And now the adoption of the agenda.
Move to adopt the agenda.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any public comment on the adoption of the agenda? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes unanimously. All right. Next on the agenda, we have citizen comment.
Mr. Chair, just to remind you of how this works, this will be just general citizen comment for anything that's not on the agenda. And then when we get to each item, everyone will have a chance to speak on each item as they come up.
Thank you. And just, some of you may be here to comment on the GRU bills and things like that. There is an agenda item on customer service that's going to address some of this, I believe.
So I guess we can go either way. If folks want to talk about that ahead of time, and then when we do the item, it might address those issues.
Mhm.
That might be an easier way to go ahead and hear the public comment.
Sure. And so it's up, for those of you in the public, there is public comment both now and then at the end of the meeting, so you have your choice. Roberta.
So Roberta Gastmeyer, I thought I was coming to speak on an agenda item, that being the GRU rebates, gas rebates. I see it's pulled from the agenda again, so I'll spare you my 3-minute speech. But I do ask you to please read the letter that I sent, that was sent by signed by a coalition of groups that are against this rebate program, and to ask you please to get it on the agenda sometime soon, and to maybe ask you when that might be on the agenda.
Okay. Thank you. Would you
I
like to
can,
comment on that?
Mr. Chair, I can address that briefly. The intent is to have that on the September regular meeting, which I think has been changed to September 14th.
Thank you. Any other citizen comment?
Hello. I have a lot that I need to get into 3 minutes.
If you go ahead and state,
It
if you can start by
actually
stating your name, please.
Angela Castile.
Thank you.
It may actually touch on stuff that is on the agenda. So, my name's Angela Castile. I'm the one who started the petition to lower the GRU rates. Now, a little more than 2,700 signatures. The vast majority are here in Gainesville. And I would like to start with the deposits that were supposed to come back. There are many that still have not received deposits. They have a good pay history. Others have had their electric shut off wrongly and still have not received their deposit back because of GRU wrongly shutting it off. Not only that, we're here. A lot of people are struggling because we had the pandemic. People are still trying to catch up because COVID's not gone. So where is the help for those people? There's, oh my gosh. All right. So not only that, there's also the temperatures. The temperatures have only been minorly hot compared to last year. There's some data that says 1 degree. There's other data that says 3 degrees. So between 1 and 3, that's not going to make a big difference. Yes, there's many people out there that are doing everything you guys tell them to do, and their bills are still $500. And then as far as the longer days, the longer reads, why don't we average out where that 30 days is? And then if that 30 days falls into tier 1, leave that at tier 1 and have those extra days still at tier 1. Also, I feel like, so I read the audit, and to me, it was saying that the findings on the second finding for GRU was, what I got from it was that basically there's no set amount going to the general fund for the city. So why isn't there a set time or set amount?
Okay.
So
All right.
we're all outraged over the bills, and what you're trying to do, I've seen you guys trying to help. It's not going, it's not going unnoticed, but it still makes people angry because those that really need it the most aren't getting the help.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for your comments. I don't know if General Manager, whether you'd like to have any response at this point, or you'd like to
I
wait
think if
until-
we want to hear, so I do want to like chat through those things, but I think if we want to hear from all the citizens, and then we're going to give a little brief presentation and address some of those.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you for raising the issues, because I know what people are hurting.
Hello, my name is Peter Volk. I've had some issues with my utility bills, and back in May, I got a bill that said I used 8,000 gallons worth of water in 1 month. Now, if you look at my history, it's not even close to that. So I took a picture of the water meter. There's about that much dirt on top of it. I went down to GRU, and the clerk told me that the meter readers come out, move the dirt, read the meter, then put the dirt back on. I thought that was a joke, but he has a straight face. So for the past 3 months, my water meter, I'd put a piece of electrical tape on it to see if it's actually been lifted. No. I haven't seen a meter reader in my neighborhood in 3 months. Their tier 2 is just ridiculous. If it takes them 35 days to come read your meter, that's a big jump. I don't know why they can't do it in 28. They're saying they're short on meter readers, but all the money they're charging us, they ought to be able to hire somebody to come out and read these meters correctly. But like I said, I know for a fact that they're not reading my water meter. And I had to go to that measure just to check it, to make sure that that tape wasn't moved. The dirt wasn't moved. I can't see any fingerprints when they moved the dirt to read it. And mine's not electronic, so they actually have to get up there and look at it. And I know a lot of people that are paying late charges. Fortunately, I haven't had to do that. But quite a few people I know have incurred late charges because the extra billing cycle. It takes longer, and they just can't afford it. So that's why we're all here. So I'll leave it open to somebody else.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Faith Kerr, Komu on my account. And my bill this month was $147. I was like, yay, finally not 400 after 4 months of 400 living by myself with my dog. Normally my bill was 200 to maybe 260 at the highest of the heat time. I've lowered everything I can because when we call in, they give the normal spiel. You can do an energy assessment, you can do this, blah, blah. I'm by myself. I don't qualify for any assistance. It's to the point where you decide mortgage, car payment, or GRU. I'm good at balancing my money, but yet those are the decisions because my GRU is as much as my mortgage and as much as my car payment. Then I decided, I was like, I'm gonna call in my meter then because my meter reads are like every 35 days. So of course it extends me to the next bracket. So I decided I was going to take a picture of my meter and I'm going to call it in. So I call it in and they say, oh, we already got your read. I was like, well, what did they read? So they told me, I was like, something seems a little off with that. Let me tell you my number. So they supposedly took my number. So when I get my bill and see $147, I was like, okay, great. So it says meter read estimated. This month, 83 kilowatts. 83 when I average between 800 to maybe 900. So my bill is obviously wrong, which means I'm going to have a huge bill next month, and yet nobody cares. We have our regular bills to pay, but yet it's like, oh, well, we don't have somebody that can come around and read. I called it in. There's no excuses. When I drive past GRU and see for the people, I'm like, you guys own the people. That's what it boils down to. You don't care if people can't always get assistance. Because I'm single and I work, I don't qualify for any of the list that they mail out to me, but it doesn't mean I don't struggle. So, yeah, we have to suffer because there's not enough. You guys are getting plenty of money from us. The reads are not correct. When I ask them, a couple months ago I called in, every month I call in actually when it's like $400. And they say, oh, well, we read it. And I'm like, I don't think so. Even my neighbors said that. They've never seen somebody come past. I checked the part, like the guy was saying, about how they're supposed to dig for the water. And I'm like, I've literally lowered everything I can lower right now. But yet, nothing changes. And then it's estimated. My dog's not out there, so they can't use the excuse of beware of dog. But yet, it's not getting done. So next month, what am I supposed to do? What, I'm paying $147, I was excited. Now next month it's gonna be how much, $600, $700? I don't have the finances to be able to keep paying for GRU not having enough people to be able to come out, and I call myself. There's no solution to it except for you guys have to acknowledge there's a problem. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak?
Hi there, my name's Brad Coball, and I'll start off by saying, obviously, Mr. Cunningham, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
You know, continue to do what you can for everybody in Gainesville, right? I think it's well represented that everybody's hurting. I come here sort of wanting to ask, and I had a good conversation with Jason Flutes, I believe, who sits on the volunteer board. Is that Jason? Hey, Jason. Hi, nice to meet you. I forgot your name, sir, already. Fletch. I had a good conversation with Fletch. And the question I asked was, you know, when I sort of course, like everybody in Gainesville, am a homeowner, get my electric bill, get sticker shock. And you go out to, so this is a question sort of directed to Mr. Cunningham. Would you agree that the Florida Municipal Electrical Association is the governing, or is a body that sort of publishes the cost of which it, you know, the efficiency, and Fletch didn't like the word efficiency, but I look at it as really as such, as the efficiency of which GRU and your design and your electrical plants generate a kilowatt hour and pass on that cost to the customer. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and answer. So, I mean,
Go ahead.
FMEA has, they summarize people's bills and their expenses and do a comparison.
Okay, and I don't know the detail of which they do their analytics, you know, on that analysis. You know, I really look at it as it's an electrical comparison. It talks about it at the kilowatt hour level. So, you know, we're ignoring water, we're ignoring all that. It's just really
Correct. It's electric.
looking at the different municipalities and utilities. And so one of the things, let me see if I can get to it here, is, and I had published this, so if you could put the overhead on, I know it's my phone and it's not great, but let's see if I can zoom in on it. You know, this is December of 21, and this is the chart of the 1,200 kilowatt hours built comparison, what it takes. And here's Gainesville. So this is, you know, when we talk about the Ukraine and the gas prices going up, I'm going to assume this is enough pre-gas price increase. And here we have So if you look at June 22, we're second in Florida. Here we're first in Florida. I come here sort of asking what can we do 10-year, 20-year? What's our 10-year, 20-year plan to be 50th percentile? If we estimate we have 50 utilities here, and we want to be 25th in the pack, just that people we're all going to get our electrical bills 10 years from now. And so we can look at it and go, you know what? We're like everybody else in Florida. We're all in the same boat. How do we get there? Has an engineering company, and it's not an auditor, it can be an auditor for the efficiency of which the GRU is run, but has an engineering company been asked to do an analysis of GRU's electrical generation design and to look at a 10-year, 20-year plan to say, here's the infrastructure, and this is, of course, where you get mired down with the solar versus biomass versus this, and the conversation Jason and I had, which was, it's great that if this is the data, that the biomass plant is Gainesville's cheapest kilowatt hour for cost of fuel generating body plant.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
I appreciate your
Am I 3
comments.
minutes up?
Yep,
No?
you're out of time.
Okay, very
But I
good.
do appreciate your comments.
Okay, but anyways, that's what I'd like, in closing, that's what I'd like GRU to do, is sort of more get in front of this from a 10, 20-year plan.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak at this moment? All right. All right, well, I do appreciate all of you who come here to speak, and those of you who haven't. We do value your input, and I understand people are suffering. And just to be clear who we are, we are the Utility Advisory Board. We're a volunteer board, not employed by GRU. We're here because we care about what's going on with our city and our utility. We are an advisory board, so we honestly have no direct power, but we do advise the city commission, and we regularly, many of us share our opinions with the city commissioners. But we do hear what you're saying, and I've watched the rates and I know what's happening. And so hopefully we'll address as much as we can during this meeting some of these issues. And there'll be another chance to talk later in the meeting. So thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, if I can, kind of repeating what Mr. Jacobson said, absolutely understand the challenges that customers are facing during this time, and it's very difficult. And it's for staff at GRU. I've kind of characterized it as we're trying to turn over every stone of what we can do to help customers during this time. And so in a second here, I'm going to have Kenzan Hutchinson. He's our Chief Customer Officer. He's going to come up and kind of talk about some of those things that we have been able to do to try to help customers directly. And I know I do want to just say a few things about the challenges during this time. Is there is, and Kenzan will share some data, but there is data about this. This is a hot summer, and so that has driven up power usage. So power usage has gone up quite a bit. The fuel portion, so it's hard to explain this like in the simplest terms, but the fuel that we use to generate power, the cost of that is a direct cost that goes to the customer. And so if that fuel price goes up, that cost goes to the customer goes up. If the fuel price goes down, we're able to lower fuel adjustment and it goes down. Since last summer, it's more than tripled. And this is worldwide. This is affecting everybody. In fact, natural gas in the United States is being shipped overseas because they're paying even more for natural gas. And so the prices here have driven up. And so what that has, come to then is that we have adjusted our fuel adjustment up as that's happened. And so the combination of the fuel cost going up, everybody using more power has kind of hit lot larger bills. And so with that, we've tried to focus on how to help customers directly, working through GRU, but also through agencies that are local. And there are a lot of opportunities to do that, and we'll share some of that here in a second. But we are attempting to try to get as much out there from that standpoint. And then in addition, we're continuing to look at the fuel to see if it's going to start coming back down. I will tell you, have no crystal ball, but there probably is not going to come down until around the end of the winter time. And so we're in a time of higher fuel prices for several months. And so that's a reality that we're facing. And again, like I said, we're trying to put tools in people's hands to try to help during that time. So I'm going to stop there and have Kinzan Hutchinson come up. Again, he is our Chief Customer Officer, and he's got a few slides that he's going to kind of share and look through. As he goes through that, I think he's going to answer some of the questions that were raised during citizen comment. If he doesn't, I've tried to type the questions as I heard them, and I'll try to cover them if he doesn't as he goes through. So with that, Kinzan.
All right, thank you, Chair and the Board. I'm Kinzan Hutchinson, Chief Customer Officer, and of course, we're gonna go through a slide. But there's a few things that I want to discuss before we really get into the slide. I want to talk about a few things. The first thing is, of course, as Mr. Cunningham stated, that it has been hotter than normal temperatures where we are. And you know, I did a little bit of research to try to figure out what the temperatures were like last year versus this year. And last year in June, there were 10 days where the temperatures were 90 degrees and above. This year, there were 25 days in June where it was 90 degrees and above. And of course, because of that, a combination of course, the fuel adjustment, the higher temperature, of course, it's creating higher usage. It's definitely impacting bills. And in addition to that, of course, with the fact that we are short with meter readers, we are trying to turn over stones, but it has resulted in sometimes longer billing cycles. But we're definitely trying to hire up and get that figured out, how to make that, how to improve that. Also, Mr. Cunningham did mention about the fuel adjustment. Of course, 67% of our fuel to produce energy has been natural gas, and of course, it has been expensive. So we're trying to navigate through that as well. And so some of the actions we've taken as it relates to the fuel adjustment, mainly trying to be completely transparent. It's nothing we're trying to hide. We want to be transparent. We want the customers to understand where we are, so they'll understand the decisions that we're making, trying to make the best of where we are as it relates to the utility. Also, for bill estimations, like all other organizations that are out there, labor force has just been real challenging. Finding employees, keeping employees, and of course, employees are transferring jobs and moving around, and of course, trying to keep meter readers have been a little challenging for us. And so, of course, we've been trying to navigate through reading bills sooner than the actual 35-day cycle, and of course, to try to mitigate the fact of having 35-day bills. Now, we've resulted into doing some estimations. Trying to get out to where they're not 35-day bills, but maybe estimating at the 28 or the 29-day or the 30-day billing, and if we can't get to it, and it's going to be a 35-day bill. And so we've been working through that, and it hadn't been every billing cycle, every area that we've been doing it. It's just been a few routes that we've been estimating where we have to, but we definitely try to get out and do an actual read for those bills. And then also going to, and I guess I'll jump into the slide.
There should be a controller there.
Awesome. So.
Yeah, it's not in the backup. It kind of came out over.
All right, and so some of the things and resources, and I'll talk a little bit more about resources and things that we've done, and I may be able to tap on a few, answer a few questions that some of our customers have brought forth tonight. But of course, we definitely have energy surveys that we can go out for our residential customers and also businesses to try to help identify some of the inefficiencies that may be in the home, or at least help educate and empower customers to really know what's going on in their homes. And so these are some of the things that we've done. Of course, you'll see where this fiscal year, we've done 245 energy surveys. And the thing that I do want to blow our own horn, but there's been quite a few when we actually go out and do surveys for our customers. they really they become more enlightened of how things operate in their homes as it relates to their HVAC system, turning off lights, watching the thermostat on your water heater, and just it's really been beneficial for our group as they go out to really serve our customers. So the waiving of late fees and returning deposits. And so, as the general manager stated, we're trying to turn over every stone we can to help customers who may be having challenging times right at this moment. So, of course, the first thing is we did waive late fees because we do understand that customers may need some additional time to pay bills, and so we felt like at this point. To do what we can to give them that additional time. So if a customer needed a few more days, we don't want to penalize them, especially where we are. And so that's why we waived the late fees. We went back through July, and we did go back and waive all the late fees, and we anticipate doing that all the way through the month of September to really help during those times. The next thing is the returning of the deposits. And so this was a little tricky as it relates to returning deposits because we try to balance making sure that we can collect if we do have accounts that aren't paid that prevents it from going over into collection. So we try to balance that. And so what we did is prior to our process would be 24 months having good paying history at 24 months, then the deposit would release. And so and what that looks like is if you're late 3 times or more in the year within that time frame, it doesn't fall within that category to be able to release the deposit. If you were due for disconnection, it does not fall within the category of good paying history. So those who fell within the good paying history, we felt it beneficial for our customers to release it at the 12-month mark, and then also balancing the fact of course, we don't want too many accounts going over to collections where that cost is spread out amongst all the other customers. And so that's kind of where we fell out with the deposits. We did release all the deposits that were in that status last Thursday. And so customers who did not receive it, we may reevaluate that later, but at that point, that's just where it kind of fell out at as it relates to releasing the deposits. So talking a little bit about payment arrangements, and so I want to state this across the board. We are not in the business of trying to disconnect anyone. That's not what we want to do. And so one of the biggest things is it's just communicating back and forth with customers to see what we can do to assist customers. Prior to, we had to where a bill is due at the 21-day mark, and before, what would happen is we would give a 7-day grace period for customers. So if they were a little late at the 7-day mark, which is at the 28th day mark, a customer can call in and ask for an additional 7 days. And so to prevent customers from having to call in and just get the additional 7 days, we just extended it out to that point. So instead of it being due at the 21-day mark, a customer has up until the 35-day mark to actually pay their utility bills. In addition to that, we do have personal hardship. So if customers are having an extreme hard time and that payment arrangement's just not working for them, we do have extended payment arrangements to where if we need to give 5 additional days, we do that as well. But then also we have an extended hand installment plan. So if a customer is just saying, you know what, I can't make this payment this month, we have been in a place where we say, okay, well, what we'll do is we'll take that monthly bill and we'll spread it out over what would work for the customer. So if a customer had a $600 bill, we can spread it out over 6 months, and that customer will pay an additional $100 until they pay off that bill. The thing with this, though, and I want to state this, sometimes it's challenging because, if a customer is having a hard time paying that bill at $600, if next month falls within that same dollar amount, well, we don't want to put an additional $100 and then that customer is struggling to pay that. So that's a challenging one, but we do work with customers to figure out what would work with them for them to be successful, so they don't find themselves in bad places. In addition to that, as I mentioned, when we go out and do energy surveys, it's just been phenomenal to the point to where we get an opportunity to really empower our customers and understand how the different things, different appliances and whatnot are utilized within the home. And so these are just some tips that we have out there. If customers need assistance or want to just learn how to utilize some of our energy efficiency tools, we do have it out there as GRU Energy Saver. You can go online, you can look at those things. And a couple things I did want to mention. So if you turn your air up when you leave the house, switch your thermostat to auto, reduces the bill over $400. Now, of course, it depends on the unit and it depends on the efficiency of the home, but those are just some of the things you can do. Checking the thermostat to make sure, checking the water heater to make sure that it's at 120 degrees and taking shorter showers. Also, even when you leave, fans cool the body, but not a room. So if you're leaving ceiling fans on when you're not in there, it's really not doing you any good. So definitely turning off the ceiling fans. And I also like to liken it unto, if you're not using something, unplug it, because it's just like a vampire. It's constantly sucking energy. And so those are some of the things and tips that we try to get out to our customers so they can be the captain of their destiny as it relates to their usage.
I'm sorry, before you leave that one, just real quick, just to make sure I didn't mishear you said that that you could save $400 on your bill?
Yes, so I'm saying a year.
Got it. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, sorry about that. But yeah, it's over a year. But as I've mentioned, it depends on the type of unit you have and how efficient your home is, and all those things do play a part in it.
How about opening your windows at night or when you're not home?
So you ask me, Chair, you ask me, does that save you money?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you're not using your electricity, I think that will be beneficial in lowering your usage.
I mean, interested to, I would suspect it may not because of all the humidity you're letting into your house, but just curious if you guys had looked into that. Okay, thank you.
All right.
Can I ask you a question? Even with the upgrade, if we were to say upgrade the unit, right? If we don't upgrade the windows, is that gonna make that unit work extra? Does it keep coming in? When I look at some of the houses that I do audits on, that I've done construction on, those windows are so thin, sometimes you can stand on the inside and you can feel the heat. So if we go say, hey, we're gonna use the LEAP program to get them a new unit, and we can't replace and get them energy efficient windows, does that help or hurt?
So I guess I'll state this: if you have an older unit and it's not as efficient, having a newer unit that's more efficient will not use as much energy as the older one. But having sealed windows, keeping some of the outside air out improving that definitely will help with the overall savings of the home. So,
Gotcha. And I have one more question before you go on. So in some cases on the bills, you say we have to take estimates. So in those cases, no matter what they do, they're still gonna get, even if they've changed the behavior, and maybe that's part of the frustration of some folk, and why, like she said, we're not seeing the savings. That's because we're doing everything you tell us to do, but you're still taking the bill from last year and doing a comparison to give us a rate, and how can we ever win like that?
right. So let me speak to that just a little. So when we do estimations, what we do is we go back to same time last year, and we average it out over how many days, and however many days we've estimated your bill, that's what you end up with as it relates to your bill for the current year. When we do estimate, and as I mentioned, we're trying to not have a 35, 33-day bill, because that's been some of the concerns for our customers. And so to go and try to do a 30-day bill with an estimation, if it's off by anything, the next month when we go out, it self-corrects itself, because we'll actually get a read. And so if it was a little over, it will be under the following month, because you may not have utilized what it said we had estimated you as. And so it's just, the biggest thing is trying to prevent from having 35 and 33-day bills, because that's, as I mentioned, that's been real challenging for our customers.
Right, and like she was saying, so if last year I had this crazy whatever I was doing, and then they don't capture it, her bill's gonna look low. You do the same thing, you're gonna recapture that when you actually go out to read it.
Right.
So she's right, she'll have a way higher bill than what she saw this time.
Right. And so, Mr. Chair, so one of the things we do, and it's challenging because we've been extremely busy during rush. You know, students are moving in and out, and of course we're trying to do what we can. And so, and this may answer one of our customers' questions. You know, accepting reads. So by administrative guidelines, at that point, it says that, you know, if we estimate your bill, we do not do a reread. But what we've been trying to work through is trying to figure out ways, if it's just so off, even putting some type of lock on the account and say, well, look, just pay what your normal bill is, and then we give you an extension to the next bill, and we can true it up at that point. So we've been trying to work through those type of things. If it's just so far off that customers are struggling with that, we've really been trying to work with customers to figure out a different way to give them that additional time to allow the bill to true up. So we're not going back with resources. And I want to mention this because I think this is important. You know, when we do estimations, we're doing it because we don't want customers to have 33 and 35-day bills because we're already short-staffed, right? And so us being short-staffed, the more we have to go back out and do rereads, it's taking away the resources to kind of put us in place to stay on track to where we're not having 33 and 35-day bills. So that's why that's kind of in that place to where, you know, it's slow for us to really send somebody out because we're trying to stay on track and stay where we need to be. But in addition to that, you know, if a customer is just really having a hard time, we're as I've mentioned, we're not in the business of cutting people off. We don't want to do that. We're willing to work with customers to make sure that they continue to keep their.
All right, just a second. Fletcher, your light's been on. Did you have a question?
I do. After the first speaker, I heard about a petition and so forth. I'm wondering if we have any documentation on that project here in our package, or I haven't seen anything on a petition yet, and I'm wondering if I have material on it here or from the speaker or whatever.
Mr. Chair, I don't have any information on the petition. I think that was a customer had started a petition.
Yep. So I don't think we've seen that. Go ahead, please.
I have a question. When the customers want to have a reread, why can't they just walk out and take a picture of their meter and send it to you so that it's right there, the meter number and the reading for your staff?
Right. So, Ms. Chair, so we've had to where customers would actually give us a read over the phone. We sometimes allow them to walk out and say, "Hey, can you read your meter?" And we do that as well. It's tricky, right? Because, you know, some customers, they may not know how to read a meter, and we do the best we can to try to walk them through it. But we have had in the past and still do try to figure out how we do this to where if a customer wanted to take a picture, we do that. But in addition to, as I mentioned, we're trying to navigate being shorthanded. And so when we have to take pictures, they email it to us, and just transparency, like we're behind in reading emails because we've had so many emails and dialogue through emails. And so when it comes in, we're trying to navigate through those new emails to look at pictures and get those things updated. And so when we talk to customers, we do the best we can to kind of work with them and say, okay, well, if it's too high, let's pay what you normally would pay, and then we'll get it squared away. And that way it's keeping some of the double work off the back office folks, and also keeping the meter readers constantly reading to stay on track.
It almost sounds like you're having some of the same issues, same kind of issues that the people who are getting behind on their bills are, where you guys are trying to get caught up and then trying to do estimate to get caught up, but estimate has its own can of worms. And so I hear what you're saying.
All right, so we do work through that process. That there's been times where we've taken reads because it just bill is so far off that okay, we can try to get this done, but as I mentioned, we kind of try to balance that because of course we're taking a lot of calls and we're trying to hurry up and assist as many customers as possible. So
Okay, all right, thank you.
I have one more.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, one more question. When you said you did 245 home energy audits and 58 commercials, was that in-house or was that a combination? Was that your staff alone
combination.
with CWCs?
No, so we have another party that so We have another party that helps us with our LEAP, and so we brought on temporary personnel to help us do energy surveys.
But it's all your department
Yes.
that's doing, it's not an outside agent?
Yes, it's all our department.
All right.
But you said it's a temporary,
Personnel that works for us.
so, but they're GRU?
It's GRU temporary personnel.
So it's not CWC, right?
It's not CWC.
Right, I know, but what about your in-house energy auditors? What are they doing?
They're doing it. So, Mr. Chair, our energy auditors, they're doing surveys, and also they're working to help make sure that we're successful with LEAP.
Okay. All right.
All right. So, in addition to the surveys that we've done, we also, which I'm so excited about this, and hopefully everybody's heard about this, but LEAP Plus, where we received almost $2 million worth of ARPA dollars to really assist with increasing our, expanding our LEAP program, where LEAP used to be $6,500 per customer. Now it's up to $10,000 we're able to assist customers with, which has been going really well. We've been extremely busy trying to get out and do pre-inspections and post-inspections to really help those who are struggling with the inefficiency of their home and really can't do a whole lot about it. But this program is really allowing us to really be able to help our customers where they struggle to be able to make improvements on their homes. So I'm really excited about this program. I think the
Mr.
last...
Hutchinson, just real briefly, just say what it is, like what we do.
So what we do with LEAP Plus is where we go out, we do a pre-inspection, we look at the customer's home and find different inefficiencies. And so once we identify those inefficiencies, we go through a process of getting those things replaced. And so what some of those things are is like we replace HVAC systems, we replace water heaters, we do installation. We do caulking, weather stripping, different things to really like improve the efficiencies of our customers' home. In addition to the residential part, we've also expanded that program out to where we can assist renters because prior to we were leaving out renters. And so renters, if a renter is in a place where the utility bills is just constantly skyrocketing and can't feel like they can't do anything about it, they can apply to go through LEAP. And once they apply, they have to get the consent from the landlord, and at that point we're able to do efficiencies for our renters. A couple of things I want to mention is that so a landlord can have up to 4 units that they can do, which I think is really good. In addition to that, I do want to mention that for those who want to find out a little bit more about it, we do have a table set up outside for any customer who want to apply for it. And when you apply for it, we have applications out there, and you just have to turn those applications into NHDC. And at that point, they'll process it, and we can move forward with it. Some of the resources we have that are available for our customers, when customers call in, we do point them to our resources to help. I get it, it's challenging for everyone, but there are some dollars out there through these different agencies and resources to really help those customers. We try to partner our customers up with these resources to help in these challenging times. So I do want to mention that we do have resources available. And that's it. I'm trying to make sure that I answered. So I want to mention this. So I do see where there was a deposit question. I think I answered that. If we shut anybody up, Mr. Chair, if we shut anybody off and they're not supposed to, we want to be the first ones to know about it, and we'll resolve that issue. There are issues where it could happen. It just things happen, but we want to get that fixed as soon as possible. And I think I may have answered it. Did I get all of them, Mr.?
I think so. There's one I'll address at the end.
Okay. All right, Mr. Chair.
Well, first of all, we'll face it out.
Yes, sir.
First of all, thank you so much for your leadership and customer service and trying to balance that. It's a lot. And I know it's a lot, especially with all the challenges that go on. So thank you so much for being able to balance that. I wanted to ask you for deposit. I heard you say that if they've had a positive payment history, then you return that deposit. So if some people are like late payers and they never pay on time or whatever, but you never have to use it, say, once it's cut off, you apply that deposit and they have to pay the balance. I know, because I haven't always been able to pay my bills. So, so when I had a deposit at one point, I've gotten a deposit back, but I also had a deposit applied to a final bill of mine once I got cut off, and then when I got ready to go, I saw that deduction. But what if I'm late and I'm not doing well? Like in some of the people that are complaining to me and say, hey, I've been late, yes, I've got them late fees and all that stuff, but they've never used my deposit. So why am I losing it? Do they lose it just because they haven't paid on time? Or are they entitled to it and they need to call your office?
So if I get the question, so if someone is bad pay, has an unsatisfactory payment history, are they losing their deposit?
Mm-hmm.
Is that the question? Okay, so.
Yeah, just be clear if I'm hearing you correctly. We say unsatisfactory, they've had to pay some late fees.
Right, but you never use, never, and that's my question to them always, because I've had my deposit used for my mistake, right? And so I asked them, did they ever use it as a line? They said, no, they'd never applied it to my bill. They just told me when I cut my service off and I paid my final bill and I thought I was getting my $150 or whatever back. They said that I wasn't entitled to it, but they never used it. So where does it go?
So I would have to look into that, Mr. Chair, but one of the things is if a customer, when they finally move out, or if they moved out if they're turned off and then final moved out on their last bill, the security deposit is applied to the account, and whatever is remaining is what the customer owes. If the deposit is more than what they owe, then at that point it's returned to the customer.
Okay. So I'm glad you answered that. So then my answer to them would be to call into customer service directly. So that way somebody can pull up and say, hey, this was used on this particular date.
Right.
And that's why you're not getting it back. So that's great.
Right.
And the other thing I wanted to ask about the LEAP program, I am glad. I've always been an advocate for doing some changes in LEAP so that everybody that pays into it can actually use it. And so I like to see that the renters and, at least few units, that's progress to me. But I still don't see where one of the challenges I had with trying to get people to access the LEAP program was that a lot of people there was also a requirement that you have to be current on your taxes. Some people stay in their houses for 30 years and they're never current on their taxes because they let it roll over year to year, but they've been paying that sucker for 30 years. So they're never going to show a positive or above rate, and that's a lot of low-income people that I service in the Duval area. Also, in our community, there's a lot of heirs property. So have we figured out a way that we can get families to say, hey, we agree to this for the person that lives in the house? Because when we tried to apply, my sister lives in Maryland, we couldn't get it, but she's not affected by our GRU bill, we are. Right. And so trying to figure out how do we be able to get the help we need, because we're the one that's actually dealing with the issue instead of her. Has there been any conversation about that piece?
So that, Chair, though that discussion has been had, there's nothing final to that. We constantly review our process, and we constantly review how we operate LEAP, because we want it to be beneficial for all of our customers as much as possible, but we're constantly trying to evaluate to make sure that it does fit in our business model. So we are working through it, but we just hadn't finalized it to that point to make that decision.
And Mr. Chair, just to clarify, Member Miles, so you're saying that the two things to look at are heirs property and people that are disqualified because it backs on their tax, like they're late on their taxes.
Or no
Okay.
homeowners
All right.
insurance and those type of things. What I would do when I was working for Habitat is if I have a $20,000 project, I go buy a temporary insurance policy that covers during that time. That way I don't tell my customer, hey, you don't qualify. And because a lot of times what happens is, it's like, I can't get homeowners insurance because I need these repairs. Well, you can't get these repairs without homeowners insurance. So they're like stuck. You know what I'm saying? So in order to just pull that out, it was really simple. They have $20,000 for a project. I spent about $600 coverage for 8 months doing my work. After that, it goes away, and then they're able to go try and get their own insurance because of those upgrades. So those are some things that, yeah.
So I think, as Mr. Hutchinson said, we recently opened the program to renters, which was something we heard for a long time, that was needed. I think this is something else we can consider, as he said, as we go forward over the next couple of years. And the $2 million in federal funding that he described is going to be implemented over the next 3 years. So this is the first of 3 years where we'll be implementing that $2 million. And so there may be opportunities we can improve the program and reach even more folks.
Any other comments, questions from the board?
So, Mr. Chair, I was going to say, I think there were two things that we didn't cover that I was just going to make some short comments on. One was about the water meters. So, again, unless we're doing estimating, and I want to be clear on the estimating, we're not estimating a lot of folks.
Right.
The goal was there, it was a hard decision to move into estimating because it doesn't sound good. I know that there's a challenge there. The goal was to reduce those bills, try to get them closer to the 30-day reads. And when we did that, we really tried to limit the number that we're estimating, and we're continuing to do as few as possible, but to keep the billing cycle short. So with water meters, we do read those every month. There are some that have ERTs, which don't require you to open the box, but the vast majority, you have to open the box, clear it off, and read them. And just to be clear, because I do this at my meter at my house all the time, I can go out there and clear it out today, get all the dirt out. If it rains because of sandy soils in Florida, all the dirt's completely back in there the very next day, and it looks like no one's been there in a year. So that does happen. Our meter readers, when they go to read, there are ways to track the accuracy of their reads, because you can go the next month, and so we can know, like, if someone's not reading accurately or if they were skipping for some reason and not getting a read, we can track that to make sure we're getting reads. So in the situation you described, I would think that would be a rare condition, but that's something we can check. And if you suspect that, I think calling customer service. We've talked about customer service over and over. I just let everybody know the number is 352-334-3434. And that is really the good place to go if there's something you're not sure about or you think is something wrong, to call to get that clarified and to kind of talk that through with our staff. And then the last thing I was going to say, if the 8,000 gallons is something much more than you typically do, oftentimes, and this actually happened at my house a couple years ago, I had a leak. My leak was under the slab. I got the bill. It was a lot higher than my normal bill, and then I eventually had to find the leak under the slab. So you may have a leak, or even leaky toilets and some things like that use more water than you would think about. So I just let all customers know that's something to consider if you're getting a bill that's higher. The other question I wanted to just touch on was the gentleman that was asking about the 10-year, 20-year plan. So I will say, one of the things we're entering into right now is called an IRP. It's called an Integrated Resource Plan. And the idea of that is determine what is your next generation going to be? How are we going to generate power moving forward? That is really the place, as you look forward, of how we plan forward to see how to keep bills more reasonable and what the approach is. We are taking an approach that we're really trying to be sustainable. So, and I like to characterize that as three things. You want to balance three things to be sustainable. The environment's one of them. You want to be environmentally responsible with whatever you do. Economics is one of those three prongs, and then the third prong is really equity, social equity, so equitability to customers and the community. So making sure you have solutions that kind of balance those three things, that's going to be really important as we move forward to what the future of bills are and things like that in our community. So we're trying to really engage the community in that as we come forward over the rest of this year, and then next year move into developing what that roadmap looks like. And the IRP really is going to go out 30 years. So it's like, what is the next 30 years and what are those big investments that you're making? So that's one really big piece. The other piece is, are we running an efficient organization? You know, is pay right? Is the number of employees correct? Are our processes efficient? And so that's something we're always evaluating and moving toward. And then the last piece to touch on, as I saw your comments, was efficiency of our units. So we have several units that are not very efficient, and the reason is they're old. So we have some older generation, and as generation gets older, it becomes less efficient. And so that's why we're entering in the other reason we're entering into the IRP is we need to figure out the next piece instead of those older units. And those are all going to take investments. And so this is a really important exercise we're entering into to really address the long-term financial stability and what folks are paying for their utilities. I think between Kinzana and myself, I think we answered most of the questions that we heard from the customers, unless you all think we missed anything.
Thank you. Jason, you have a comment, question?
Yeah, just one quick thing. Since so much of the conversation recently has been about meter reads, different aspects of meter reads, and particularly since we have a lot of folks here who may be new to this topic, I wondered if somebody could just briefly, succinctly, let folks know about the AMI project and what that's going to mean in the future in terms of, I'm thinking meter reads and opportunities for people to conserve in the case of a water leak or something like that.
Yeah, so Mr. Chair, thanks, Member Foltz. I actually wrote that down, but I forgot to hit it. So I know this doesn't feel good in the moment, but we are in process, and we've been in process for more than a year toward implementing advanced metering infrastructure. That's what AMI, what he was referencing. And AMI will really solve some of the challenges we're talking about tonight. And let me explain. So what AMI allows us to do is communicate with the meters remotely. So we're going to be replacing meters, and we already have begun this, replacing meters, then having a network mesh where you're able to communicate with those meters so that actually you will not need to go to a meter and read it. It'll be able to be read remotely. And then we'll be able to schedule exactly when we read it. So the idea of a longer read won't really be an issue unless there's a problem, with a meter. And so it'll really resolve some of these challenges with longer read times or difficulty getting meter readers, or even it'll provide information like, let's say, the water leak thing that I was describing. We'll be able to have alerts and alarms that say, hey, you're using a lot more water than you normally do. You might want to check out, see if you have a leak. So that project is in process right now, and over the next 2 to 3 years, we'll start to get all those meters in there, and the customer will have a lot more information available at their fingertips on a mobile device, so that they'll know their usage and be able to control that. And so a lot of the energy saving tips, you'll have a lot more control to be able to see what's going on and make adjustments even throughout the month. And so again, I know that's hard it doesn't address anything on your August bill or your September bill this year, but it is something coming down the road that will be extremely helpful for customers.
And what will the granularity be on that? Will we see hourly data? What will the customer see?
Yeah, so electric will initially be set up 15 minutes, and water will initially be set up as an hour. Okay. And that's something that we could change. It's about how much of the battery it's going to use and how long the batteries are going to last. But 15 minutes is a lot more than one a month.
Yeah.
And so that is going to just provide a lot more information for customers.
And I'm very excited about it because knowledge is power. For the gentleman who had the 8,000 bill, I've had that same thing. I had a leak, so I took a picture of my meter, went back an hour later, said, did that thing move? But it'll be great to have that. And also, when you can see the power use, I've had customers that I've dealt with where you go and they didn't realize this pump's running at night. So there are a lot of things that's going to help you do. A couple things for people while I was thinking about it. In terms of, I mentioned what's the UAB do? I mean, so you're welcome to talk to us. We can convey what you're saying. GRU doesn't control billing rates. They have things that they have that are within their purview. A lot of it's not. what's the billing, what's the the general fund transfer, that's city commission stuff, just so you're talking to the right people. A question I had was, say someone calls in customer service and they're not satisfied with what they're told. What's the next step
So, Chair, so if a customer is not satisfied with what they're told, we do have a process to where you have a senior that can give a customer a call back, or even a supervisor. I'm a manager and up the ladder from that point, but we do have those checks and balances in place.
So someone says, okay, not happy with the answer for whatever reason, they would say, can I have a supervisor?
May I
give me
speak to a
call back?
supervisor, and we'll get them to a supervisor.
Thank you. And I just want to say, yeah, I don't work for GRU, as I said, and I don't work for the city. I feel, we're all here representing the citizens. But I have to say, in my opinion, not speaking for anyone else, from what I see, GRU is really trying. It's a tough situation. They're not controlling the cost of the fuel. I hear I feel your pain. We just don't have enough people to get the job done.
Yeah, we're going to do the best we
Trying to find
can.
those
I mean,
balances.
we're going to work till we get it done.
Shutting people off isn't doing anybody any good, and they're always trying to find that right balance. On one thing, in terms of why are bills so high, because I look at a lot of people's bills. Number one is the fuel surcharge. It's gone from 3.5 cents to 8 cents.
3 cents, 8 cents, yep.
In a very short period of time. That's a huge increase. That is just a pass-through. That's not something GRU controls. That's the way it's set up with all the utilities. Here's the cost of fuel. That gets passed through. That's the biggest thing that's causing the higher temperatures are really having a major effect. If you have an adjustable temperature and you can turn that temperature up during the day, turn it up. Crank it back down at night. Some people have this idea, oh no, I need to keep it lower during the day so it doesn't have to work as hard. Turn it up. That can help. The 35-day bills, that was a tough one. I mean, that's going to add 15% to your bill right off the bat. The tiering, I got pushed into the next tier. And I was talking to Tony about that. I ran the numbers, and these are just my numbers, but I feel confident in this. At worst case, that's about $5 hit. I mean, just, unless you have something really weird, looking at, I've moved some of my usage from this month to next month, assuming your usages are fairly constant, and I can show people the numbers of why. I'm not saying things aren't happening, but that one in particular, that's going to be limited to about a $5 hit. So in terms of where the hits are coming, those are the big hits. Fuel surcharge, hotter than normal, 35-day billing, and then most people are not affected by the tiers because they're not. Most of the people are into the second tier anyway, and so they're not being hit by that one. Anything else before we move on? Is this something where is this a citizen comment?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so, because we don't have an action.
We don't have an action.
Okay, so it's not an action. People will have a chance to speak again a little later in this meeting. Yep.
That's what I was saying. I had one question. I wanted to know if I can ask an hour later. I didn't take action on that.
It's up to you, Chair.
Okay. Please go ahead and, please come in, say your name, go ahead and speak. And I just want to say to the people here, I really appreciate you being here. And I know you're frustrated, but I really appreciate the civility of the tone. So much today we haven't seen in today's world, people yelling at each other, So
again, Brad Cobal, homeowner, and I think that's a perfect segue to the first question was, I had heard through the grapevine, does the city have an ordinance of 28, 32 days, maximum 32 days when the meter reading has to be done?
That is not an ordinance.
That's not accurate. Okay, so your meter reading can take place with whenever you get to it.
Yes.
But you try to get to it, obviously, within the month.
Yes, well, let me just say briefly, so along with the advanced metering infrastructure, we're updating our billing system. So our existing billing system has some limitations to it. So what happens, sometimes why you get those longer reads, sometimes it's a labor issue, but other times is the read comes out on a Friday to read them. You're not going to read them until we don't work through the weekends. Although we do that sometimes. Actually, we're doing it a lot right now, but we don't always do that. So you might not get a read till Monday. Monday's Labor Day, so the read doesn't come to Tuesday, and all of a sudden you have a 36 day. So there's multiple reasons why that happens. Right now, it's primarily driven by lack of meter readers.
I appreciate the answer. On the civility side, I think that's my last statement would be, I see through online, there's a distrust with the city, GRU. It's tough times for everybody. So I really encourage, I'm really speaking to you, Mr. Callahan, right? Cunningham, thank you, Cunningham. That you work right now in this time of need to improve the transparency and yourself stepping forward more in the public, not this meeting, more in the public eye. I really would encourage the media, 20, TV4, Gainesville Sun, in talking to those reporters, I asked them, somehow it came up indirectly, how easy is it for you to get council chair side with GRU? And they can't. That's not a good answer, that they can't easily knock on the directors, executives' doors, you and your board, and I would encourage the media to do more of an expose discussion, a 15-minute piece to say, here's the short-term issues, play to the long-term issues, and really have this third party. So I'm done, but thank you very much. I just wanted to get the gist of it.
Thank you for your comments.
And Mr. Chair, can I just respond? So I'm not sure on the no access, so we interact regularly with media, whether it's TV 20.
Sure.
We do
All I can do
interviews
is tell you what the reporters are telling me,
So-
that it's hard to get.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So we have a director of communications that's sitting in the audience that has regular communication with TV 20. We do regular interviews and discussions with them, Gainesville Sun and other media. And the desire is to get answers out there. People have questions. We want to answer
Transparency.
those questions. Absolutely.
Yeah, great.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
100%.
Thank you. And we have a couple lights on, but first, I just want to, we have another.
I'm the one that had the 8,000 gallon.
Sorry, sir.
Water
Is this the citizen comment section? Are we at citizen comment?
I chose to let citizens speak at the end of this item.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
So, anyway, when I got the bill for the 8,000 gallons, I tried to call. I was on hold for over 35 minutes. So, like I said, I went down and they told me, that they covered the dirt back up. So they did mention a possible leak. Well, the meter has a leak indicator on there, and that thing wasn't moving. There's nothing that I changed the next month in my home, so why wouldn't my bill be the same if I had a leak?
Good question.
And that's a big leak too.
Yeah.
4,000 or 5,000 gallons.
A leaky toilet will do that.
Okay, but like I said, the leak indicator didn't move.
Yeah.
When I got back from GRU. And I changed nothing. So my bill should have been the same the following month.
Yeah.
And the other question I had, the rate stabilization fund. What is the purpose of that?
Would you like to take that one?
So I can respond to that. So the rate stabilization fund is really an emergency fund that is set aside for, we're in hurricane season, for instance, right now. And so if we have something catastrophic happen to the utility, it's cash reserves to address that. So several people have asked, rate stabilization fund, fuel levelization fund. The fuel levelization fund is really the fund to pay, where we collect and pay for fuel charges. The rate stabilization fund is different than that. The design and the purpose of that is real for emergencies. It could be, like we said, a hurricane. It could be something happens to the billing system and we're not collecting revenue. But we still got to deliver fresh drinking water. We still got to deliver, buy chemicals and do our thing. So it's a set aside for that purpose.
So they probably should have called it emergency fund instead of rate stabilization, I would imagine, right?
Well, part of it is to help stabilize the rates. So rates there's two parts. There's base rates, and so that's the rate stabilization for base rates, and then there's the fuel surcharge. And
Right.
that's what the fuel levelization fund helps to stabilize.
Has the fuel stabilization fund been used to help mitigate a little bit the cost?
Yes, so it's been drawn down to where we don't have a surplus in that. It's been drawn down to try to minimize the impacts of all of these things through COVID over the recent past, and so we don't have a surplus in there, and that's why we've had to raise that fuel adjustment in order to collect the monies for the fuel that we're expending.
Is there a reason why it costs GRU more to create electricity than another utility company? Even with the biomass plant that was supposed to,
Yeah, so the cost to generate power, there's a lot of pieces that kind of feed into that. You have the fuel cost, you have the efficiency of the unit, you have the efficiency of the organization and how we do it. So for kind of describing a little bit earlier, some of our older units are natural gas units, and some of those, the efficiency is a little bit lower because we've essentially tried to extend the life of those units. So as the units got 30 years old, we did some repairs and got it to 40 years old, which is good because you're not doing this big capital investment, but the challenge is the efficiency of the unit has come down, so that there's some cost there. We have, GRU is pretty highly leveraged. We have a lot of debt. And so that large amount of debt has led to some of that, being on the higher end of the rates compared to other utilities. But I will say, like right now for the DHR, the Deerhaven Renewable, the fuel for DHR is significantly cheaper right now than natural gas for the gas-fired units. And so right now, as we're generating power, that's actually be generating at a lower cost. But there are other times when natural gas prices are low or natural gas is at a lower cost. So it kind of depends on where the markets are, and it depends on the efficiency of your units. And then obviously, like I said, it depends on the debt of your utility, that is also another cost.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And just to follow on, you talked about the billing system. It's antiquated, because I've asked the question, it went to 35 days. Can't you just divide it out and say, here's your 30-day equivalent bill? And I was told, no. Our system just can't do that. Wish we could. Sorry. When we get the new system, it'll be able to do some of that kind of thing. Tim, you had a...
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I kind of want to just move on, but I've heard some stories from people who have called into customer service, and they've waited 45 minutes to an hour before they're actually talking to somebody, which I was kind of surprised by that, because I was under the impression from previous reports that the customer service department was quicker than that. At least I was under that impression. So I would just start with a comment that if you're dealing with somebody who's already frustrated by whatever problem they're dealing with, and they're trying to call you while they're at work or whatever, and they're on hold for an hour, it's not going to help the situation. And then end with the question of, I assume it's a staffing issue, but is that the average, wait? And is there something that could be done about that?
So let me take a first shot, Kinzan, and then you help correct me and truth check me a little bit. So a couple things is, because of the town we live in and the transitory nature of Gainesville, August is a time we call rush. So there's a lot happening in our community with the utility, particularly move-in, move-outs. And so from a staffing perspective, it's one of the more difficult times. And so, the whole perfect storm thing we have this summer, increased fuel prices, increased energy use, a lot of people calling from that perspective, and then rush kind of hitting at the same time. We do have some things, we have callbacks, where you don't have to sit on hold, and we'll do the callback and some other things like that. But this is a challenging period where you're really peaking the number of people calling. So Kinzan, go ahead and...
Perfect.
Kinzan has taught me well.
Fletcher, you had your light on?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let's see. Like a lot of people, I was quite aware that we had a very emotional city commission meeting the other day, where predominantly people were talking about single-family zoning. But I saw Tony in action dealing with electric utility billing issues and 35-day bills and all these issues that were incredibly emotional and difficult. And I just want to give a round of applause and a thank you for Tony for really handling those issues very adroitly and very professionally. It spoke well for Tony, it spoke well for GRU, and I think it spoke well for the UAB and our interest in the betterment of our city and our county.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Mr. Chair, I mean, I really appreciate that. I think this is a hard time for customers. And, you know, I kind of end where we started, which is we are trying to turn over every stone of figuring out how to work through this time period specifically and helping customers individually, and then also how do we continue as an efficient and well-run utility into the future. And so we do have a tremendous amount of professionals and experts that are doing that, but there is no easy one thing that's going to fix anything right now. And so I do want to just follow up with, if folks have questions, if they need to talk to us, please call customer service. Please ask those folks, and realizing that there is a wait time and there are some of those challenges. But yeah, we are trying to come alongside customers during this time because it is tough, and it's going to continue to be tough. It's going to continue to be tough the next several months. So thank you.
Well, if we can move on to the next item. Is that the update on GRU's customer service? Or is that what this is?
No, that's what we just did.
That's what this was. Thank you. I wasn't sure where the operational update transitioned. All right, so moving along to the resolution authoring an amendment to a swap transaction between the City of Gainesville, doing business as GRU, and Citibank NA, amending to float rate payable to the city thereunder be.
So, Mr. Chair, Mr. Benton is walking up. He has a brief presentation and then available for any questions. Oh, and I'm sorry, can I add to, so I sent an email to the board last week. Typically, these are items we bring to the UAB prior to going to the city commission. Because there's no second city commission in August, we had to take these items to the city commission last week on August 4th. So these next three items, they have been approved by the city commission, but we still wanted to come back to the UAB so that you were made aware of them. And if you have any questions or comments, please let us know.
So this is an informational only?
Correct.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, first thing I want to point out about this proposed transaction, there's no new debt associated with it. We're not extending the maturity of any existing debt. We are simply, proposing that we change the index upon which we receive a variable rate payment from a swap counterparty, Citibank, on our 2017 C swap. As you recall, back in 2017, we issued $115 million in 2017 Series C bonds. That was one of three series which went to fund the acquisition of Deer Haven Renewables. About 2 years later, we entered into a swap to synthetically fix the variable rate interest on the 2017 Cs. And under the terms of that swap, GRU agreed to make a 1.41% fixed rate payment to the counterparty in exchange for receiving a variable rate payment that was based on 70% of 1 month LIBOR. LIBOR is London Interbank Offering Rate. It's an average of rates submitted by banks all over the world that indicate either what they are paying for interbank loans or what they believe they would be paying for interbank loans. It's a common index. It supports trillions of dollars of financial transactions all across the globe. This is just the mechanics of the swap. Some people see things better in pictures. On the left-hand side, you've got the original issue where we issued the 2017 C bonds. We make a variable rate payment to our bondholders. On top is the swap where we synthetically hedged it. The green line going from GRU to Citi is the 1.41% fixed rate payment that we make. The red line coming back from Citi to GRU is that variable rate payment that we receive from Citi. The theory behind swaps is that variable rate payment that we receive from Citi offsets or hedges a large portion of the variable rate payment we're making to the underlying bondholders. So what we have left net, on a net basis is that 1.41% fixed rate payment for the 17C bonds. Now what's going on here is LIBOR is being transitioned away from as an index for financial transactions. The last time it's going to be published as a benchmark is June of 2023. So our counterparty has proposed making an amendment to that existing swap agreement whereby they're proposing that we replace the existing variable rate that we are receiving from them that's based on the 1-month LIBOR with a floating rate that's based on the 10-year secured overnight financing rate, or SOFR. And that is the SOFR is the average rate that institutions can borrow overnight in U.S. dollars when they collateralize that using U.S. Treasury bonds. And it is, at this point, it's believed that the SOFR is going to do most of the replacement for the LIBOR transactions that are in place today as they expire. Once again, this is just a picture. The only thing that changes in the swap and the mechanics of the swap is, as you can see, we're no longer going to be receiving 70% of 1-month LIBOR. We'll be receiving the 10-year SOFR rate. As I told the City Commission when I made this presentation last week, you can ignore the numbers that are on this slide. This backup was put together back on July 25th. I think that Robin can correct me if I'm wrong, but that was the deadline for the backup of the City Commission. Since then, as I'm sure you're all aware, the Fed has raised interest rates. The Fed mostly impacts short-term rates, so it's flattened the yield curve. These numbers are no longer valid. From GRU's standpoint, the benefit of this transaction is there's another 25 years left on this swap. We believe that for the bulk of that 25 years, just as it's been for the bulk of the past 25 years, the yield curve is going to readapt its traditional slope, which means that long-term rates are going to be higher than short-term rates. And if that's the case under this transaction, going to a longer 10-year SOFR rate is going to benefit us versus the 1-month rate that we're receiving now. Currently, right now, when we enter into this, there's not going to be any immediate benefit. Right now, what we are planning to do is we're going to price this transaction tomorrow. We believe that we're going to start the cash flows in April. By that time, we would expect that the yield curve will have shifted a little more towards its traditional curve. So why are we doing it now? Number one, the LIBOR index is going away. We're going to have to do something before June of 2023. As I just mentioned, the yield curve is flattened significantly. And while that diminishes the immediate benefit that we would receive from that, what it does do as the yield curve flattens, the spread, the price that we pay for any of this transaction goes down as well. And so it gives us more potential upside as that yield curve is reshaped in its traditional upward slope. So the benefits are, like I said, we expect that over the course of this swap, we're going to generate significant positive cash flow. There are risks associated with it. One is that if, in fact, the yield curves flatten or they invert, where short-term rates are higher than long-term rates for prolonged periods of time, it could reduce the amount that we receive back from the counterparty. We don't anticipate that that's a particularly prevalent risk, but it is out there, and for the sake of transparency, we want to make sure we mention that. And the other one is it does increase slightly the basis risk, and the basis risk is simply the fact that there may be slight mismatches between the index upon which we make payments to our underlying bondholders and the index upon which we receive that variable rate payment. And this was the recommendation that we made to the commission, and it was approved unanimously.
Good.
So I will be happy to attempt to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Seeing none, thank you. I do appreciate your efforts. That's some detailed stuff. All right, moving right along, the Murphy Water Treatment Plant Administration Building renovation.
So, Mr. Chair, the next two items, Rick Hutton, one of our supervising engineers in the Water Wastewater Department, will present both of these items. And again, both of these items went to the City Commission on August 4th and were approved. So, Rick.
Good evening, Rick Hutton, Gainesville Regional Utilities Supervising Engineer in our Water and Wastewater Department. And again, talking about the Murphy Water Treatment Plant Administration Building renovation project. So there's a couple different drivers for the project. One is that the Murphy Water Treatment Plant was built back in 1975, and so the administration building is original equipment original, and so it's kind of gotten of age where it's in need of some renovations. So that's a big driver. Also, we did a security evaluation a couple of years ago based on some new federal rules, and there was a couple things that we felt like we needed to improve in order to comply with that. And also, as we're doing this, we realized, hey, we are doing a lot of tours out at Murphy, want to show off, our water supply, our treatment system, and so this is an opportunity to sort of modernize that facility. So those are the drivers behind that. Basically, we asked for and received authorization from City Commission to move forward with the contract to construct those improvements. It's about a $1.6 million project. We're doing it through a contracting mechanism known as Construction Manager at Risk. So that's a project that we'll be moving forward with.
Can you explain what construction manager at risk means?
So there's a number of different ways you can construct projects. Sort of I would say the old-fashioned way was you'd hire an engineer to design the project, and then you wouldn't have any construction people to look at it at all until you put it out to bid. And then you put it out to bid, and then you would get your costs back from your various contractors. And so that process still is used and is often the best process in a lot of times. But the downside of that is that sometimes you get a surprise. So if the engineer designs it a certain way and then contractors come in and give you a price, well, the engineer maybe didn't realize there's better ways to do things. So the construction manager at risk, you basically bring in a construction contractor as part of the design team. And that way they help you be really cost effective and figure out, well, hey, instead of doing this kind of flooring, you should do this because it's easier to construct this and it's more durable. So you're able to kind of get the input of somebody that's really knowledgeable on the construction side in the design process. And then that construction manager, when you're actually building it, they still have to bid out the pieces of it, so you still get competitive pricing, but you've gained that knowledge from that construction manager to get the best design.
Okay, thank you. I do appreciate that you got it down to 23 cents.
And it's kind of funny,
That's
isn't
an exact
it?
number.
So I believe that was approved by City Commission. It was on the consent agenda last week.
Thank you. Any questions on this item? Yes, Mike.
In a word, what do you guys expect to do out there?
Oh, what do we expect to do? Well, I think some of the work will be replacing flooring. There's doors that we have to replace. There's some other internal things. Oh, also the wall finishes are needing. There's a general replacement of a lot of things. Bathrooms too are kind of reaching a point where they need to be remodeled. We have our toilets are not the most efficient toilets there, so we got to we need to put our money where our mouth is, and we're telling our customers to get low-flow toilets. We need them too.
So the other thing, Mr. Hutton touched on it earlier, so the American Water Infrastructure Act a couple years ago came through where we had to do these evaluations of the water system. And as part of that, there were some security issues within the building that Rick touched on that are needing to be improved. And that a lot of those things are the drivers or safety and security improvements that was identified through AWIA analysis.
Yeah, just to be clear, that's, a lot of the cost is associated with that, and then the flooring throughout the building and the wall finishes and whatnot are kind of a lot of the driving factors for the cost.
Teresa, you have a question?
Is there any emergency infrastructure also as well? For like emergency situations, backup generation or anything? Or any of the pumps?
That's not part of this work, but we have done other improvements after doing the AWIA analysis, but this is just for the main administration building.
Okay.
All right, anything else on that? Thank you. Hey, just some free feedback. You may not want to refer to toilets as putting money where your mouth is. So.
Yeah, but I didn't want you to think that that's where all the money is, because it's a fair amount of money.
Understood. Free advice. All right, well, we'll jump right into the proposed 2023 water wastewater connection charges and other new development-related fees.
Mr. Hutton?
All right. So, again, this was approved last week by a city commission. It's pretty routine that every year we update our water and wastewater connection charges. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what they are and why we do this, as well as other development-related fees. Also going to tell you about a couple of adjustments to the ordinance related to a connection charge installment program and our connection charge credits, which I'll explain and what those are and what we wanted to adjust. So again, so what are water and wastewater connection charges? So one thing that's different about water and wastewater compared to electric is it's kind of standard practice in our industry is that when you have new development, that new development has to pay its own way. So it has to pay for the capital infrastructure that's needed to serve it. And part of that is because water and wastewater infrastructure is very expensive, and it's very expensive related to the cost of the product itself. So how does new growth pay for itself? Well, one aspect of that is that if you're going to do a new development project, you would have to pay for the water and wastewater piping that are needed to connect to your project. If there's a wastewater pumping station, you got to pay for that. But the utility itself also still does invest in things that are needed to be able to provide that capacity. So one thing that we do is with our water and wastewater plants. So we talked about this administration building improvement. That's not necessarily a new growth related project, but an example of a project that we're doing to help provide capacity is our Main Street Water Reclamation Facility. We're doing a big upgrade on that plant that's going to increase the capacity of that plant. Well, so all this money that we spend on building more plant capacity, we recover that over time through these connection charges. Also in our water distribution system and our wastewater collection system, we do invest in things that create capacity. So that's why water wastewater connection charges are charged. It's a standard industry practice. We review them in detail every so often. Most years we do an inflationary index. We have been using this engineering news record construction cost index, which is kind of a standard industry index that reflects capital costs, and a lot of what we do to create that capacity is capital construction costs. So what we're proposing to adjust, again, this is something we do every year, is the water wastewater connection charges, the water service and meter set. So when you connect, you need a meter. There's a plan review and inspection that we do in conjunction with new development projects. Water main tapping is something that we often is needed for new projects. In the Innovation District, there is these infrastructure improvement area fees that are to recover some particular costs that we expended in that area for development in that area. Also temporary water service too. So this just shows you, and now that index increased by 8.24% over this last year, which, well, it's higher than in previous years, but unfortunately it sort of reflects the inflation that we're seeing, and consumer price index and other indexes are very similar, and it really reflects what we're seeing in terms of what it costs us to do projects. So the effect of that change on a single family residence, for instance, would be shown here. And so a typical new house, you would pay, oh, sorry, so sorry. For a typical new house, you're between your water connection charge, your water meter, and your wastewater connection charge, you would pay, currently you would pay $5,774. If you're in the city, there is a 25% surcharge. If you're outside the city limits. With the new charges, they would go up 8.24%, and so that would go up to about $6,250 in the city, so that's about $500 increase. If you're outside the city, it's about a $600 increase. I do, actually, and I think I was asked to provide, what would it be for commercial as an example, and I didn't have a slide on that, but I did. Forgive me just if I can put this on the camera here.
We have the overhead, please.
And while we're waiting for that, I believe Teresa has a question.
That looks like a lot of money, but if somebody wasn't connected to city water and sewer, what would be the cost of putting in a septic tank and a well and all that in comparison, so people understand if they're not in the city and they have those other costs, what the difference is?
Well, I know they tend to be variable. It's a good question. And I think particularly with the well, it's going to vary a lot depending on how deep you have to dig your well and whatnot. But I believe that certainly like a septic tank, it's on the order of same similar magnitude of cost, and I believe somewhat similar on water depending on where you're at
I
too.
just wanted people to think about that, if you weren't on the city and water and sewer connection, what your cost would be building a house to compare.
Good thought. Thank you. So, forgive me, there's a lot of numbers on here, but, and part of, I was asked, well, what about commercial? And so commercial connection charges will vary quite a bit from one connection to another because we try to base that on how much flow is that going to use. So obviously like something like a small office is going to pay a lot less than like a large restaurant. So we tried to do a little bit, just kind of a couple of examples. So one example was, what if we had a 4,000 square foot sit-down restaurant? So what would the charges be? And I won't go through every single one of these line items because that would take us forever, but under our current system, that restaurant would pay $29,000 with the proposed increase. That's an 8.24% increase. It's about $31,000. So a little over $2,400 more for that type of installation. So that's that's a pretty good sized restaurant, pretty significant water use. Another example would be an apartment complex, and in this case we just said, well, what if you had a 100-bedroom multifamily? And incidentally, these costs that I have here include not only the connection charges, but it's the meter and it's some of the other construction-related fees that for instance, tapping the water main. That's actually requires our crews to go out and do the work and whatnot. And so, another example would be, so this fairly large apartment complex would be a difference between $136,000 and $147,000, so about $11,000. But that's a pretty big installation.
Great, thank you.
Can I go back to the slides? So, switching gears on you, a couple of changes to the ordinance that we talked about is there is a stipulation in our ordinances, something called connection charge installment. So, if you had an existing house and you wanted to connect to our system, so you had an existing house on well or septic, you want to connect to our system, you have to pay connection charges. And so what this installment program did is it would allow you to spread that over 10 years. But now when this was first put in place, we did not have the Connect Free program. So the city's Connect Free program actually will, if you have an existing house, it will pay for you to get connected to water and sewer because we want you as a GRU customer, and that's something that helps citizens that are oftentimes in situations where their water's not good or the septic tank's failing and whatnot. So if you can get with Connect Free, since that pays for it, we don't really need an installment program. Also, it's very difficult for our billing system to handle. This is something that traditionally only a few customers use it, so it's kind of a one-off kind of thing. So we're proposing to remove it from the ordinances.
Plus, we don't want any hurdles to getting people off septic tanks.
That's true, we don't. Then the other adjustment we proposed was the connection charge credit. So one of the things related to when you have a redevelopment project, if you had a structure on that property prior to redeveloping it, and it was connected to our water and wastewater system, the intent is to give you a credit for what the connection charges that would have been paid on that. So you have a property that's got a single-family house, you're going to demolish the house, you're going to build whatever, a quadruplex or whatever, you would get credit for the connection charges related to that house. One of the things that we have run into difficulty in the past on that program is that, well, sometimes it's like, well, maybe there was a house here that burned down in 1968, and so did we give them credit for that, and how do you research? It's a lot of work to try to research that. And so what we've proposed to do, which is more in line with what other utilities do, is basically a 10-year look-back period. So in order to get the credit, there had to have been a structure that was connected to and had accounts with GRU within the last 10 years. So the structure could have been built a really long time ago, but it had to have existed within the last 10 years to get the credit. And that's what other utilities are doing, and we think that's what we should be doing too. So a lot of numbers on here, but just for completeness, I mentioned, other development-related fees. I talked about water meters, tapping, and some of these other things. This set of numbers really reflects that 8.24% increase that will go in place in fiscal year 2023. All right. That's it. Oh, okay. I thought we had another slide there for the conclusion. Well, the City Commission approved recommendations, which were to adjust these fees as I described and to make those changes to the ordinance, which will be, I guess it will be undergo final approval when the actual ordinance changes go before City Commission, I believe in September.
September. There'll be 2 ordinance readings in September that will make all the changes to Appendix A, which are all of our rates and fees.
Okay, great, thank you. Any comments, questions?
I have one question. And this is for lead customers, or customers that are to the east. Do you know where Prairie View Elementary is? How far does the water go out that way? Because I know a little bit further than there, water and sewer for a lot of the LEAP customers was a big issue, that there wasn't connections, and they were on old septic tanks and a water plant there that wasn't working a lot. But they had GRU electric, so I don't know how far you've gone that way.
So, Mr. Chair, I think there's a couple of things there. You may be referring to the Kincaid Hills water system, so that's a private water system. We don't provide water and sewer system to that neighborhood. I think it's about 400 customers, but it's a private system, so we don't provide the water. As far east as we go, Noonan's Lake, we don't get all the way to Noonan's Lake, do we?
No.
So, yeah, short of Noonan's Lake with water, sewer I think is even shorter than that. So, yeah, I think.
Is there any plans to expand out that way?
So for our water and wastewater system, it is expanded by development. So we don't build the system for folks to connect to. So if there are developments out there, then they would approach us to expand the system. But no, we don't have any expansion of the system in that manner.
Now, one of the limitations in Kincaid Hills too is that we can't legally go and expand into another utility's service territory. So we periodically get folks in that area requesting service, and unfortunately we cannot extend into that area.
I know that they've really asked for that a lot out that way.
Yes, there's DEP. We've over the year I think my entire career here, there's been discussion of Kincaid Hills and us potentially taking the system. It would require that area to rebuild their system, the pipes and pay connection charges, and it'd be a pretty significant cost to connect to our system. And again, that would be if the private system was willing to sell it and wanting to move in that direction. And we've had many discussions over the years, but yeah, it's never changed.
I didn't know if any of the LEAP Plus funding or anything could help with some of that, because those are real customers that could really use assistance.
Mm-hmm.
Or electric customers, right?
So yeah, they're electric customers, but the water and sewer system is private.
Right. So,
Anything else, Teresa?
No, thank you.
Anyone else have anything on this? This is,
So-
again, not a voting item.
Correct. Mr. Chair, if I can ask customers that are here, we do have a table set up out in the foyer for if folks want to sign up for LEAP. I just wanted to see if there was interest in that. If there is not, I'm probably going to let those folks go home, but if there's interest, they can stay. Is anybody, any of the customers would like to do that, sign up for a LEAP application? Okay, I'm seeing none, so Kanzan, thanks.
Okay.
Thanks, Rick, appreciate
Thank you
it.
very much.
Thank you.
Good to see you all in person.
Thank you. All right, and I think last but not least, based on these new items, the distributed solar generation intake to GRU system.
So, Mr. Chair, if you all remember, I think it was the meeting before the last meeting, we gave a presentation. Mr. Tony Carroll, our energy delivery officer, gave a presentation about distributed solar generation intake into our system. We did not have an action coming out of that presentation, and the city commission has requested us bring to them this item. And so what we did was we kind of wrote a summary memo, distributed that summary memo to you all, and it's in the backup. And the request tonight is if you all have any comments or thoughts about that, and if you are so inclined to make a motion that comes from the board that we can then deliver to the city commission as we update them on the item. So if there's anything you all want us to communicate, this would be the time to do that. So if you have any additional questions, anything in the memo that you want to address, Mr. Carroll and I can hear that and take that. And like I said, then if you want to make a motion, we'll take that to the city commission in an upcoming meeting in September.
Any comments, questions on the memo?
I have So I had a couple questions. The recommendation there at the end says a customer can pursue adding solar PV, but the customer must pay for an impact study to ensure other customers and GRU equipment won't be negatively impacted. And again, this is to, if they wish to exceed the 2 megawatt on feeder, so it's not just any PV system. But I'm curious if Mr. Carroll or someone could give us an idea of what such an impact study might cost the customer, if someone wanted to do that.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chair and members. It would all depend on the size of the system they're going to be installing, but a typical study recently, we were quoted anywhere from $8,000 to $10,000 on a residential home to perform such study.
You say a residential home?
Yes, it was a study for them to add and exceed. My bad, I misspoke. It was actually the Target Superstore where they were adding, and they were going to exceed the limit on.
That's a little different.
Okay, yeah, I was just saying.
But basically you're paying for engineering time to perform a study and gather the data and enter the data, and so it basically boils down to what they want to charge for their services and their expertise.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. And then my second question, I think based on the presentation that you all gave that I understand what the issues are with exceeding this 2 megawatt limit and the dangers of that to the system. I'm wondering, since it's not explicitly mentioned here, if a customer doing a very large system like this, we're going to add a storage component to it, if that might offset some of the concerns about the integrity of the system.
Yes, of course, if a customer was installing a system and they were going to exceed the 2 megawatt limit or whatever the limit is on that feeder, if they were going to install a battery backup system, then that would negate any concerns that we would have on the utility side, as far as we're not having to overcome the effects of the solar generation whenever it goes away and comes back, because the battery is going to kick in and should be sufficient.
Okay, so I thought that might be the case. So then my only follow-up question then, is it worthwhile to say that explicitly, like in this document, so that it's clear to everybody that that is an option? Because the way this reads to me now, it's like, okay, if I want to do this, I have to do this impact study. That is quite expensive potentially, as you just mentioned. But if a customer was aware that storage was a potential option that would offset these concerns. Anyway, and you know, Barry's much more knowledgeable on this topic than I am, as are you, but I just wanted to ask whether that might be worthwhile to actually state that in this.
It probably would be worthwhile. However, I would venture to guess, and I'm sure that the chair knows better than I, but I'm guessing that the cost of battery backup is probably a lot more expensive than a study.
Well, but it isn't just the study, right? It's the study, and then the second part of this is, if the impact study indicates that utility distribution system upgrades are required, the customer must bear the expense of the upgrades, right? So it's the study and the upgrades, right?
If they want to pay for the utility upgrades. But I guess in addition, we could also state that as part of that study, they could also study as to what kind of impacts they would have if they had a battery backup of certain size. Maybe they don't require the entire system to be backed up by battery, maybe only 50% of it. That could be an option too.
And I think you make an interesting point. But in a follow-up question, I wasn't really planning questions, but you made some interesting questions. So if think of the homeowner. Homeowner comes in, they're in the wrong feeder, the feeder that's already hit the limit. So if they come in, will they be told this is what the impact fees are going to be, or is it, is it a cost, time, and materials kind of arrangement? I want you to do an impact fee. At the end of it, okay, here's your bill.
Honestly, we never had a customer to go that route, to want to pay for a fee. In the case of Target,
Sure.
we got lucky, and University of Florida Electric Engineering Department wanted an opportunity to show us what they could do, and so they provided that service free of charge for that one case.
I'm just thinking of a homeowner, because it does happen where you feel like, oh, great, I happen to be down the road from the Target, and I'd like to put in my 5 kilowatt system. Is there? I just didn't know if there's, because it'd be hard for a customer up front to say it could be anything. It could be up to $10,000 and write a blank check.
Well, if a customer chose to go the route and they wanted us to perform a study, then we would go out and calculate what that cost would be, and we would provide that to the customer.
Okay, before you actually spent the money.
Yes.
And then to Jason's question, because let's say again, I'm thinking the homeowner says, okay, I want to put in solar, and I'm going to put in batteries anyway. Would you say in that case that a study would not be needed?
I think it's very possible that that's the case, but I don't want to say that, wholeheartedly.
Yeah, so I'll jump in a little bit. I mean, I think I like the feedback. I think that we might be able to kind of put more explicit statements in here so that some of this is clear. The way that I would think of it is that there would need to be a demonstration of some sort that the battery backup isn't impacting the system. So whether it might not be an impact study, but something is going to need to be done to demonstrate that putting that battery backup will not have that negative impact to the customers.
Right.
And so once again, just like Mr. Carroll stated, I think in that case, we'd be able to say, this is how much that demonstration is going to cost, and before the customer would need to make any payments.
And I think that's fair. Just, in the case of a commercial one, I know you'd have to do the study because, Target says I'm going to put a battery in and how much and how it's going to be operated. So I do, and just so people know, that's $8,000 to $10,000 for a study for something like Target is well within industry norms. Some utilities go ahead and charge the fee regardless of what their current capacity is on a feeder. So Jerry's definitely not out of line with industry norms on this. Any other questions, comments on this topic?
That got me confused.
I'll quit speaking.
I thought most of the questions revolved around here was the inverter, what do you call it, injecting things into the network, what do you call it, and whether it had battery backup or not.
Well, one concern was reverse power flow, which is what you're referring to, I think. And the other concern is the voltage dip, voltage drop that occurs whenever, say, a storm comes through or cloud coverage goes over, and all of a sudden that solar generation goes away, and then our generation has to make up for that loss of solar generation. You've got that inrush of current, which causes a voltage drop. And so that's another concern. Whereas if a battery backup was in place, the utility feeder would never see a change, or it shouldn't, if everything operates the way it's supposed to. The solar goes away, the battery kicks in with the inverter and provides the power that the solar panels were providing previously during the cloud coverage. But you're exactly right. The reverse power flow is also another concern.
Okay. I thought that was the larger issue, but I guess it isn't. All right.
It does kind of cut both ways.
Huh?
It kind of cuts both ways. That cloud comes in, suddenly the power from the solar drops, the cloud clears, and suddenly
Right.
it
It's still a
ramps back up.
voltage issue.
Yeah, it's a voltage issue both ways. So,
Are you looking for a motion?
yes.
So I'd like to move that we, I guess, support this document with the suggested added change around adding some language around the option of storage, just to make that explicit for folks.
Okay.
Do you have suggested just so I understand what you're looking for?
Well, just, I mean, as we discussed here, that people are clear that that storage is an option, as opposed to necessarily having to do an impact study and upgrade to the utility distribution system, so on and so forth. Just the option of storage is discussed.
Okay. And I apologize, I didn't do the right thing. You made a motion. Do we have a second? And then we can have discussion.
I'll second it.
Thank you. All right, so now we're ready for discussion. Any discussion on this item?
I mean, it sounds to me like whether they are considering battery option or not, they're still going to have to do, whether you call it a study or whatever you call it, they're going to have to provide documentation that shows what the impact is going to be with the batteries or without the batteries. So, I mean, however you say it, there's still going to be a cost. It's not like GRU is going to say, oh, you're going to do batteries? Connect right up. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I'll support the motion, but I don't know how much of an impact it's really going to have. Am I wrong? I mean,
No, I think there's gonna have to be some sort of demonstration. I mean, again, the whole purpose here is we're making sure that adding this solar is not gonna negatively impact other customers on our distribution system. And so there will need to be an evaluation of that in order to guarantee that if you're going above the 2 megawatt cap.
I don't think it hurts to let people know that is an option. I just, it's not like you're waiving the study.
Right.
If
The other thing I was gonna say, Mr. Chair, is if you guys want it to move forward this way, we can make an adjustment to the memo. We could just run it by the chair, and if the chair is good, then we'll take it to the city commission if you all are amenable to that. I don't want to necessarily need to bring it back here and delay all of that, but if you're all okay with the chair reviewing it, then that could be the process.
Dean, do you have a question? Okay, and I agree with Jim. I mean, I like the idea, just really would have to be something pretty vague. I mean, you may want to vaguely, just to say things such as adding batteries may limit the need for a study or eliminate or something. Is that kind of what you're looking for?
And again, there's two parts to this. There's the study, but then there's also the utility distribution system upgrades, right? So like if the battery system allows someone to bypass that, and if I'm thinking from the customer's perspective, I can either invest thousands of dollars upgrading GRU's distribution system, no offense, or thousands of dollars getting myself a battery backup system. I can see people choosing one over the other, right? So that's all I'm saying, is just to
Yeah.
give people maximum knowledge, maximum options. And to be clear about that in the language of the memo.
And I went through, doing solar development, and it was not for GRU, where they did come back and they said, hey, we can add some capacitors here, or you can make that change on your side. I'm not sure, I mean, I'm trying to think if there's a way to quickly kind of, if you have some suggested language or something that we can.
I think we could probably,
Yeah.
I think we can
Okay.
pull some language together and then we'll run it by you, Chair. And if you're not comfortable with it, then we can bring it back to the board at a future meeting.
Okay, and well, let me ask, I guess, Lisa, well, you're still here with us. So how would this work? So there's been a motion.
I would
In a second.
amend my motion to go with what the general manager said, to have the language run by you.
And I will second that.
Okay.
Is that,
Okay.
is that?
So we have an amended motion, amended second. Any more discussion on this? And just some quick discussion, I do want to point out, I am in the solar industry. So I'm not opposed to the way it's going. It makes me just a little bit uncomfortable, conflict of interest wise. I trust myself pretty well, but I'm not sure some days. But I just want to make sure everyone's aware, and that if everyone's okay with that, I'm not looking for anything special here. But if I just want everything above board. If that's the way you guys want to go, if you guys want to bring it back, that's fine. If you'd like someone else to review it, I'd be fine with someone else who isn't me reviewing it, the vice chair reviewing it. I might suggest a friendly amendment to have the vice chair review it, just so there's no question of conflict of interest.
I'm okay with that. I don't work in the solar industry.
Is there any issue with that? Nope.
Okay.
So
That's fine, yeah.
So you would take that friendly amendment? The person who seconded, is it still good? All right. Any public comments on this particular issue? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? All right, passes unanimously. Thank you. I try to stay as far from the line as I can get. All right, now we're on to member comment. Do we have any members commenting? We're all worn out.
I have one.
Oh,
And I'll go after you.
No, you go ahead.
No, I'm going after you this time.
Do you also have something?
I'm going to say, I've gone through about 4 of the orientations so far. I think some of them are very, very good. I'm more interested in water and wastewater, because even though I'm not a civil engineer, I am a chemical engineer, and they do a few things that are chemical wise.
Mhm.
And so, some of them were communication bit. I didn't realize that we were in that type of business here. So,
thank you. Jason?
So I would actually echo a little bit. It's what I wanted to say briefly tonight. I'm on a semester break right now, and so I took advantage of this time to do some of my UAB orientation tours. And in the last week, I've met with customer service, business financing and accounting, transmission and distribution, and power generation. And it has been absolutely mind-blowing. Not only just getting to see behind the curtain a little bit what is going on, but also the piece that I want to say in particular, and I don't say this in any way to kiss up to anybody, I don't have any reason to do that, but I've rarely met people that I felt were as mission driven and as passionate and just dedicated to what they do as the folks that I've met in the last week that work for GRU. And I'm talking about the linemen for GRU, the meter readers, the folks that work at our power generation, the folks that work keeping our water clean. I just really, it got me emotional, to be honest, to meet some of these folks that have been here at the utility for 15 years, for 30 years, and to hear some of their stories, but also to hear that there are folks who will come to work and bring a change of clothes with them, so that if they stop at the convenience store or they stop at the grocery store or something on the way home, they're not getting accosted by people because they're wearing their GRU shirt. And, literally, to me, if we think about what it means to go for 3 days in a community without water, without electricity, right? Literally, civilization would collapse. I mean, in no time at all. And the fact that those folks who I really consider heroes are doing what they're doing, have also gone through COVID, are also going through extremely short-staffed, short-resourced, all these things that are happening right now. And I don't direct this at all at the folks that are here tonight. I think you all are really going through some things, and you've been very civil. But I know that there is a tremendous amount of vitriol out there right now on the internet and in the world, and it's just being directed unfairly at GRU employees. And I think that we need to be really clear about where the kind of decisions that are being made that have gotten us where we are and where the decisions being made to get us in the future. And anyway, all that to say, I just wanted to say thank you again, Robin, for arranging the orientations, and Tony and the folks that helped lead me through those orientations. And it's really been an incredible experience. So thank you.
And thank you for your comments. And I've commented on this before, but again, as I was talking about who to direct your concerns to, and again, appreciation to the people here, that line worker who's out there just wants to stop and get gas. I mean, they get yelled at. I mean, it's sad. They're just some person trying to do a job that they should be proud of, and that they have to take their shirt off is just heartbreaking. So thank you for your comments. Teresa.
Mine was more of a thanks for everything tonight. I loved all the information we got. The bills are a lot, and we're all working on that. If there's anything we can do to talk with people, I'd love to do that, and we have a bunch of different programs to reach out to help everyone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm quite proud that we do that as a community, as a whole. Not just GRU, but the whole community does that.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like I said with the bill, if we had some of that information on it, like the last page of your customer service that had all those phone numbers of who to contact. Now that's useful. I mean, you need to bill help, you need assistance. If all that, on that back page or something, you could put that on there. Because a lot of people, those phone numbers, that'll be the quickest way. They're not going to go online, they don't want to stand on hold, and that would be real helpful. And then just one point, I know I was a couple minutes late, but on the advisory board minutes for the 26th, I was here.
Okay.
I'm in the bottom, but not in the top. I just wanted to make sure it was there.
Let the record show.
Let the record show I was here.
Thank you, Teresa. And one of it was listed, I'd like to shout out is the Community Weatherization Coalition. A number of us on the UAB are members, supporters. It's a free service. It's volunteers out there going out to homes, whoever needs it, and just say, let's go in, let's see what we can do, let's educate, let's check some stuff to help empower people to help.
And it's in
bills.
partnership with GRU.
It's in partnership with city, the GRU.
Rebuilding together. I mean, lots of those programs all work together.
And it goes into rental homes, and that's what's exciting about
Right.
the LEAD Plus, because the rental homes are the ones that have really been left out, because quite honestly, a lot of, the landlord's generally not paying the utility bill. And so they're not financially vested to let's raise, let's insulate or check ductwork or stuff. And so this is one of the groups that can help, not just those people, but anyone who needs it. So there are a number of free services out there. All right, now we are down to citizen comment. Please come on down. Thank you for your patience and your endurance.
I wasn't trying to be rude about my phone, I was like putting my questions.
Nope.
So, first of all, thank you guys.
Can you state your name again for the
My
record?
name is Faith Kerr/Como on my account. But I think also when it boils down to what you guys were saying about the GRU workers, I respect them to the fullest. I have a hard time with the leadership because everything stems from leadership. No matter what an employee does, leadership is always the top. Oh, sorry about that. Ooh. Okay. Leadership is always the top. No matter what happens at the bottom, it starts there. And that's where the problem's at. It's not the employees. The employers are doing what they're supposed to do. Customer service, when I call them, I'm like, hey, it's me again. I'm not mean to anybody. But there's a problem with the leadership. And it falls down. And unfortunately, People are ignorant, and they're gonna see GRU on a shirt, and they're gonna, I mean, it's not acceptable to treat an employee that way. And I'm sorry that people do that, because it's not acceptable. But it stems at leadership. John Maxwell, Jocko, any of those people that deal with leadership, it starts with them and it goes downwards. So that's where the problem's at. Then, this is my first time of ever coming to one of these, but when it was about why do we have the highest in the state? What makes Gainesville, out of anywhere else, the highest? That's a problem. And then if it's a debt thing, well, I can't transfer my debt to somebody. So then why do we absorb? Just some questions out there. Then, customer service does a great job. Yes, we have to wait. I do hit that option because, look, I have to work too. I'm not going to sit on the phone for an hour. But yet I know that they can't pick up because if we look at Gainesville word of mouth, we know that there's clearly a problem. Is there anybody that ever looks at Gainesville word of mouth to find out people are like, oh, I have to go donate plasma so I can get my bill taken care of? Well, I can only get an extension. I got a 7-day extension. I didn't get offered anything else beyond that. But if somebody actually pays attention to the customers and showing their bills and questioning this stuff, Gainesville word of mouth is a very good resource to go to if you want to improve customer service, but it starts at leadership. A couple thoughts with that. And is it true that there's going to be another rate increase for us?
You want me to?
Yeah, if you could on that one, please. Yes.
Sure. So last year, the city commission, looking at long-term financial stability in the utility, passed a multi-year rate increase. It's significantly less than the CPI or CCI. It's a 3% rate increase that will come into effect October 1. So that is part. In addition to that, they also adopted a $2 million reduction in GFT, which lessens the impact to expenses for GRU as part of that multi-year step.
So just to understand you, so there will be a 3% increase.
Base rate
I know there was a
increase.
plan beyond that, but that's not on the books because
Correct.
future commissions will decide.
So that's electric rate?
Correct.
I want to, because we just did a 8.24 wastewater,
So that 8.24 is only on connection charges.
okay?
So the 8.24 is connection charges, which is only new development. The base rate increase, the 3% base rate increase is on the electric rate.
Okay. The cost per gallon of water didn't go up? Per
No.
gallon?
No, there's no water increase.
So yet another increase to expect. It's just, at some point in time, the customers really need to be heard. And it's not the employee's fault. It's really not. So it starts at leadership. Check out John Maxwell or Jocko, and they give great information about how to pull things together and really relate to people. So thank you. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you for your comments. And again, city commission sets rates, not throwing city commission under the bus. I'm just saying that's where it happens. And for those of us who've been through, as these guys talk about going through and seeing all the parts, it is really interesting and complicated. We could say, let's reduce the GFT, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. City commissioners then have to say, what services are we not going to have because we didn't do that? So not advocating one way or the other, it's a big, complicated question and a tough one. Anyone else for citizen comment at this point? Come on down.
Just a question, and I don't know
I'm
if
sorry.
you guys can answer it.
Yep.
Angela Castillo.
Thank you.
I don't know if you guys can answer it. You may be able to, but why is there no budget billing anymore? I think that would help customers a lot more, especially in this time. So.
You want me to respond? So I think what you're referring to is budget pay. So historically, we had a mechanism called budget pay, which allowed customers to essentially pay the same amount all year long. So let's say we would look at your past years and say you typically pay $300 a month for your utilities, so you're going to pay $300 a month all year long. When you get to the end of the year, there's a true-up of what you actually used. And so one of the reasons, as we did that for a number of years, the analysis was done that most customers did not like it because if the true up was to the wrong side, they could make up hundreds of dollars at the end of the year. And so at that point, after we had done it for a number of years, polled customers and kind of did the analysis, it was determined to not have budget pay going forward. Customers that were already on budget pay, we still have some that stayed, that grandfathered in, but we were determined not to do that. One of the challenges with it would be a year like this year. If, because of fuel costs going up, if someone was on budget pay this year, they could have gotten behind hundreds and hundreds and maybe even thousands of dollars by the end of the year. And then at the end of the year, they would need to make up that difference. And so that's the biggest challenge with budget pay.
Well, wouldn't it be so you're talking about a whole year,
Mm-hmm.
but why not do where you true up at 6 months as opposed to a full year? So then and make sure that people know, look, save some money back just in case.
Yeah, so we can definitely consider that again, and especially as we get into the new billing system, it's going to allow us more functionality. So appreciate the feedback. I think that's something we can consider, and how often you do the true up would be a part of that for sure. So yeah, that's something we can take into account. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Anyone else? Good.
I was bringing it up during the workshop about what they were doing in Gulf Power, whatever they call it now. And what they did was, if they found any difference to a positive or negative side, they would average that over the next year.
Correct, right.
Instead of just a one-time deal. You know, my electric bill was not that great. But I'm just trying to relay what Gulf Power was doing at that time frame.
Thanks.
Thank you. Nancy?
Yeah. Good evening, Nancy Darren. Teresa, thank you for your very good comments tonight and pointing out that if someone is trying to put in well and septic, there's a cost, and that, is this thing working?
Oh, it is.
Okay. And for Mr. Cunningham for the effort and graciousness to really begin to end to the whole UAB of trying to get the communication going a lot better, because this is a really hard time for utilities all over the world. And we're in a horrible transition time. We have a remarkable utility, and so I think that, to hear more of what are the questions, how can we get out there and help people understand that those charts on the municipal rates that everybody looks at, most of the year, most of our customers, that doesn't matter because we use about 800 kilowatt hours and not 1,200. And so I think that would be one piece, if there's a way to explain that to people. Rates do not equal bills. And when you look at that chart, you're looking at rates at 1,200, and we're having bills that are based on 500 to 800 for the most part, again, most of the year. So it's things like that. But I did the Citizens Academy, and I so appreciate what you're saying about the orientation. It blew me away, and how complicated and how professional and how fortunate we are, and that some of our bills we chose to do energy efficiency, and it cut our revenue. We're still in a rate structure that says there's a disconnect. We dealt with pollution controls. We did all these things that have really benefited us, our health of our community, and will benefit us far more going forward. We didn't just go the cheapest route. We've gone a route that will give us some of the highest reliability of any utility in the country, and we've proved that. So part of it is communication and helping people understand this is ours, and we need the questions. We need people, and we need to be talking together and understand it better so we can traverse this very difficult period, because natural gas and fossil fuels supply as well as pricing isn't going away. So how are we going to deal? Because people, our bills are thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak tonight? If not, next meeting is August 23rd, a regular meeting on September the 14th. I will not be here on September the 14th, so you will have the gavel then. Anything else before we adjourn? If not,